Welcome to a special episode of Beyond the Score podcast. As always, your co-host Harry is over here. Josh, how we doing?
How's it going, Harry? All's well over here. Um, First off, we got to shout out our Yankees. Getting to see that in person was something really special. Would have loved to have had you there, but we'll do that next year together.
Oh, we got some playoff games that we'll be able to get ourselves into. Hopefully, they're at the World Series, and I already said if they get into the World Series, I'll be in New York for as many home games as I possibly can go to. So the idea is we can maybe get 2 games in for the World Series. I'm trying for the ALCS, but it's going to be tough for me to get up there. But we're going to have to figure something out. I mean, there's no way I'm missing, World Series games, so that's going to happen. We'll definitely hit some
Oh, for
games up
sure.
for that. But I mean,
Sure.
rep that shirt proud, man.
Also,
Rep that shirt proud.
Josh, I love the new. Where's this? I love the new look. Love the
Mhm.
new setup.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we are located in my daughter's room. We had to adjust because we got the little work from home situation with the wife, with the missus. Shout out to her, all her support and everything. I gotta let her do her thing in the office, and we got a nice little backup here. I'll have to get a couple jerseys on a pole for the future.
Yeah, I'm certain Kenzie's going to start asking anyways. I know she's starting to play soccer, so maybe like a Mia Hamm and a Messi jersey, up in the room someplace like that. But always hands raised, for the wife. Got to make sure she's, doing her thing. Can't disturb that. Got to let her do her piece. And, we have a special episode today, so sometimes we have to change things around. But before we get into the special part of this episode, let's recap our NFL. Week 4 is over, and unfortunately, yours truly, he had the wrong pick. We had the Steelers last week taking it over the Colts -2.5. Unfortunately, barring a last second comeback from the Steelers, it just didn't happen. They put themselves in a hole early on. AR kind of dropped down with that hip injury. He came back after 2 plays that he was sitting on the sideline. He came back, re-aggravated it, and they ruled him out for the rest of the game. Joe Flacco came in, and I mean, he looked good. He kind of held the tempo down for the rest of that game. Steelers made a last second comeback. There was a point in the fourth quarter where I was like, oh my God, I could be right this week, but it just didn't go that way. It was a 27-25 loss for the Steelers. But we're going to shift to the positives, which is next week. We can always hope for the next week to be the right week. And
Absolutely.
my pick for next week is going to be the over on the Texans and the Bills game. 47 points. I think this is going to be a shootout between two high-powered offenses. Looks like Josh Allen has his guy. It's Khalil Shakir. Dalton Kincaid every week is starting to get a little better. So I expect that high-powered offense to kick back in after only putting up 10 points against the Ravens. And of course, on the other side, the Texans, they have weapons galore over there. Joe Mixon has been ruled out this past week, but his status for next week is still up in the air. If he plays, I don't see a reason why we can't see, 55 plus points in this game.
Wow, right to it. All right. I respect it, and I think that there'll be a lot of points there too. Um, but going back to the picks with my pick, where I wanted to make sure that we gave it some love because we finally got one. We broke the winless streak for me, where the Bears took care of business at home. We posted it, and we even got some value if you took it when we went live. The -135 went to -160 by game time, and I mean it took a little while to get going, but Roshan Johnson punched it in 7-6 late in the second quarter. Honestly, wasn't really watching in the beginning because it was something with there wasn't really a whole lot of action, and I was like, all right, this game is just going to be boring, and I'll check in the fourth quarter and see if I need to watch it. Then when he punched that in, I was like, all right, it's time to watch this game. And then DeAndre Swift was a star. The reason why they paid him. It's good to have a running back A and a running back B with the way these guys get hurt sometimes. But Harry, I want to let you know of a trend that I don't know if it's something that will stand, but DeAndre Swift at home is averaging 4.7 yards a carry, and on the road 1.4 yards per carry on the road. I think that's super interesting. They play two games each way. I mean, the Bears O line has been a meme of being all flattened in their last game before this. So I don't know if it's the O line on the road. I don't know if it's him on the road. I don't know if it's only been 2 games, and I'm jumping to conclusions. But regardless of that, I think that they played really well, and I think they could build momentum on this. And then since you went right to your pick, we actually picked from the same game. I got the Texans to win. So nice little same game parlay piece plus 245 if you believe in both of us to get you right picks. The Texans are 5-2 in their last 7 games against the Bills, and I feel like that's even going back to a time when the Texans weren't all that great. So now they really are. They're 3-0 at home. The Bills, they're kind of we didn't really expect them to be so great, and they took advantage of the teams that they should have beat. Miami, not necessarily. Miami was a good win, even though they took out Tua. Not saying intentionally or anything, but when Tua went down, it made it a way easier game from there. Although I think they were already dominating, but whatever it is, um, I think the Texans win this game. Um, we'll go to we'll go with 31-24. We'll go right where you said 55 points. We'll go
55
right there.
points. This guy picked 31. It's incredible. It truly is. I mean, that's a great score, honestly. That's what you can kind of expect from Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud going back and forth. You're going to see a lot of touchdowns. I know Tank Dell's most likely not going to be playing, but he doesn't necessarily need Tank Dell when he's got, Nico Collins doing incredible things. Stephon Diggs is
Nico
scoring
Collins
touchdowns.
is great.
So I think it's going to be a high power game. We didn't expect a lot from the Bills, but when the Dolphins, like you said, have this quarterback situation where Tua is not healthy with the concussion. And then we were, last week we talked about that quarterback room and how dreadful it is and why Tennessee was going to light them up, which in a lot of ways they really did this, yesterday in that game, that 24-12 win. The Dolphins, they can drive the ball. So if you have a team like them, you have a team like the Patriots who are struggling offensively as well, solid defensive team, but really don't have their ways offensively. And then the Jets who are, they're going to make their noise. And we have the Jets as a playoff team. They're going to be their the only competition for the Bills in that division. And right now the Bills are 3-1, and they have their heads held high. They believe they're the best team in that division, which at the moment they are. And so I expect them to continue to play well because prior to in the offseason, we really didn't see that picture with those wide receivers, going from Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis to Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. That's a big shift. But guess what? Josh Allen is that guy, and he's able to make those guys work and bring out the best of his wide receiver, similar to another great quarterback, number 12 for the Patriots. Tom Brady did the same exact thing with a lot of nothing. He does a lot. And I want to go back to DeAndre Swift really quickly, too, because you brought up his away and home stats. The issue is they played 4 games, 2 of them on the home, 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. The first game of the season, he had 10 rushes for 30 yards. Was not a good game. That was at home. And this was his real breakout game. I'm really sad because I actually benched him this week instead of starting him over guys like Devin Singletary and Ramondre Stevenson, which kind of bit me a little bit. But, he broke out. I think he's a great running back. I think that system needs to emphasize running the ball a little bit more, take the pressure off Caleb, because when the guy's throwing 40 to 50 attempts a game, plus, I think he had 55 attempts against the Rams.
Well, I want to
That's
challenge you on that. I want to say that I don't think it's as much the Bears doing it, that the defense is like, we don't think Caleb could beat us. He needs to prove to us that he's going to beat us before we stop stacking the box. So I feel you on that. The number is a little flawed.
I mean, in terms of Caleb beating you, he's going to beat you if you consistently put the pressure on the run game, right? And that's happened a lot because they feel like, Caleb can leave the pocket and run for the yards too. So they're making sure that the run game is stopped. And that's the reason why I think Caleb should be a little better than where he's at right now through the first 4 games. I know it's a lot to say he's a rookie. I just been seeing this game. I actually did watch this Rams and Bears game a little bit more than I probably should have, but I did. I wanted to focus on Caleb a little bit and see where he was going to go. And there was a lot of inaccurate throws. I mean, he had open receivers and he was just misfiring. And I just didn't see a reason why. And I get it. He's a rookie. He's growing. He's making, the big leaps forward and on a team like the Bears where it's his job and his job only. But I think that he needs to make the right adjustments, and I think the Bears also need to give the ball to DeAndre Swift a little bit more, at
Yeah.
least in scenarios that it's going to make sense for them to run the ball and put some pressure on opposing teams' D-line. And it doesn't seem like they've done that, and that's why it's made the defense's life against the Bears a little bit easier, and you see a lot of incompletions happening from Caleb Williams, but growing pains. He's young. He's going to be there. I don't know if he's going to be what people expect him to be, but I see him being a very good quarterback. Obviously, right now, in my opinion, Jaden Daniels is the best rookie quarterback. He's playing
Yeah.
lights out. He might not have as many touchdowns as people would like, but nobody's really talking about that because he could run and he gets the rushing touchdowns. And I mean,
And they're winning games. That's why playoff team
exactly.
might be
They're
there.
3-1. You did pick them for the playoffs, and as of right now, I mean, they're the best team in that division. The Eagles look like, without their star receivers, they can't do anything. The Cowboys are fake 100%. They beat the Giants, doesn't give them any
We hear
credibility.
that.
And, the Giants, um, depends on the way you want to look at that team. We're not going to get into the details of that organization right now, but the division right now looks like it's going straight to the Commanders. Good for them. Jaden Daniels is really amazing, and I think over time he is going to take over as a top 5 quarterback in this NFL for sure. In my opinion, at this point, it's looking like it.
I can see it. I also wanted to give a little shout out to Michael Thomas. I think that it's really important to realize that one of the better receivers, one of the better receiver rookie years that has ever happened was someone that unfortunately got his ankle dove on during a victory formation kneel play, and he hasn't been the same for years. And I'm calling out to the Chiefs to give my man a chance. He can replace Rasheed Rice, not necessarily with the chemistry and certain things because he's been out of the game for a little bit, but working together and then having him when Rasheed Rice is back is going to be something that's really valuable to have a veteran. Um, I think that Michael Thomas, I mean, I got a lot of love for him and his game, and I wish he was still with us, but Shahid's definitely shown that he's the number 2 in the Saints. But Michael Thomas is someone that I think with a quarterback like Mahomes would enhance everybody's game with the current need, especially with Rasheed Rice's injury potentially being long term.
I don't think the expectation is that if Michael Thomas were to go to the Chiefs, that he's going to be what he was in New Orleans back in 2017, for
Sure.
instance, when he was absolutely dominating defenses all over. But the Chiefs, when they lose a receiver of that caliber and Rasheed Rice, they have to go and bring somebody in. They're 4-0, so it's not like they have to go and make this decision right away. They can sit there and wait and see which receivers make the most sense. I mean, they have Xavier Worthy, who I'm expecting to probably get the ball a little bit more as we get in, but I don't expect him either to just take over as the clear-cut number 1. They have Juju still in that locker room as well, and so I expect him to get a little bit more involved as the veteran for the time
Yeah.
being. Obviously, Travis Kelce is there, so he's going to take a lot of balls away from receivers. Michael Thomas seems like it makes sense, in that situation. Get this guy Super Bowl. He, in my opinion, and at least for our generation of watching wide receivers over the last 20 years, let's just say, I would have to put Michael Thomas as probably in that top 5 category for the reason of how dominant he was for that period of stretch. And I know we could go back and say, well, running backs, they have that 2 to 4 year mark that I mentioned, but it's different when you have a receiver that gets you 1,700 yards in the season.
Yeah.
Have we seen any receiver do that since Michael Thomas did that? No. Maybe Jay Jetta. Jay Jetta might have done it, 1,800 yards. But even so, Jay Jetta is probably going to be in that conversation in about 5 to 10 years to be in that top 5 wide receiver group of our generation, of the last
Ever.
30, 40 years, right? He's a special player, too. We got to give the credits to Jay Jetta. And speaking of, I mean, the Vikings are 4-0, too. They made relatively easy work of the Packers, which is pretty astonishing. The Packers last, second half of the game, they did make a comeback, but it just wasn't enough. They had too big of a hole in the first half. Jordan Love threw a couple of picks. Getting back into things after his injury, it's still promising to see that he was able to come back in so quickly and still play a pretty good game overall. He had like 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the Vikings are legit. Sam Darnold is, I mean, they're saying, and I'm not saying this, but they're saying, when I say they're, I mean, analysts and everyone else
Yeah.
out there,
Like
that Sam
the buzz.
Darnold is
There's buzz.
probably the best quarterback in the NFC right now after week 4. And it's hard to dispute it because the stats, if you look at the stats, he's played absolutely incredible. And I'm so happy, too. I have to say, I really am so happy that he's going to be, he's coming to his own and he's really taken over for, the Vikings. And, they obviously are going to have a quarterback situation this offseason, and they're going to have to figure out whether it's going to be him or J.J. McCarthy. Actually, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on who should be quarterback afterwards. I think I know what your answer is, but I want everyone else to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, first off, one more thing, Chiefs, you can wait until week 6 because you got the Saints week 5, and we don't need Michael Thomas making his Chiefs debut at the Dome. But I think they should sign Sam Darnold. You don't like JJ looked good in the preseason against backups, maybe against the starters for a drive, but when you look at what he's done over now almost a quarter of a season, which is crazy to think about because 2 months ago, no one thought that he would even be playing. But now you have him, you have JJ McCarthy, and I think Sam Darnold has shown everything that he's a perfect fit in this on this team in this system with Justin Jefferson. Now he has Addison back too. He didn't even have Addison until this week. It's just really exciting over there, and he's still gonna get Hawkinson back too. I think it's crazy that you look at all this, and he's just they're 4-0. I think that the score doesn't show how much the Vikings dominated them because towards the end, they most likely were just trying to kill time, get through the second half, not get anybody injured or mess anything up or change anything with their dynamics. But I would sign Sam Darnold. Not really sure what I would do with McCarthy. It's good to have a good backup, but I don't know if you're really going to sign him. I don't know if that's an asset that you could get something for and get a veteran backup. But what do you think?
So I think, in that situation with the quarterbacks, you have to stick with the guy that's been doing it. They obviously have something right with Sam Darnold. Why ruin that on this team? We still have 13 more games to go and then playoffs. So we're going to see a
Mhm.
lot, but I don't know if they're going to lose a lot of value in JJ. The injury hurts a little bit, but he was a first round pick and didn't necessarily hurt himself on the field in terms of his value or
Yes,
stock.
I agree.
So the ball's in the Vikings' court. They could hold on to JJ and say you'll be our backup. Figure it out. Let's see how this works out. Keep Sam Darnold around for another couple of years and have this example work kind of similar to what's happening in Seattle. They have Geno for 3 years and they have Sam Howell in the background, who is a more than capable starting quarterback in this NFL. He's thrown his fair share of picks, don't get me wrong, but I think that's what the Seahawks are at least hoping for is listen, once we have this inclination that Geno's no longer our guy, which I think he will be. I think Geno's a very good quarterback. Sam Howell's in the background waiting to come up. So it's really going to be something that we're going to continue to see and evaluate. Obviously, how JJ McCarthy comes back from his injury, which is so devastating for a rookie quarterback to have to go through. But it also could be a blessing in disguise for him to sit on the sidelines for a year, really learn the playbooks, really see the field from that first point of view and, go from there because that's the truth. And I think quarterbacks need a little bit of development before just getting right onto the field. I mean, there's really a handful of quarterbacks who you can probably insert out there and they're going to do great things. And we're seeing that with Jaden Daniels, but even Caleb really hasn't been what people have expected him to be the first 4 weeks. He's obviously not the best quarterback. So, that just speaks for himself that, the growth and the work that you put in on the playbooks and the offseason, every single step is very vital for your career, for your
Sure,
progression in what you're doing on the field as a quarterback in the NFL, right?
for sure. I think that that's something that the quarter they can take a note from their biggest rivals across. I don't even know where. I actually don't know the geography of it, but nearby in Green Bay, that let him sit a couple of years. But now I'm on board with that after thinking about it when you were talking that um, they could keep JJ, and then if Darnold after his contract is still balling and you want to give him another contract, then maybe you let JJ blossom elsewhere. But there's no harm in trying to give him all the time and all the tools he needs to be great, even if it's not right now.
And that's what's so beautiful about the NFL. You could play 4 games so great like this, and he's getting it back. Like Sam Darnold, we could start projecting where his contract's probably going to be. It might not be a 5 year deal. It might not even be a 4 year deal. But you could see him getting a 3 year deal, similar to what Gino got at like 45 million a year. I see
Crazy.
that being a realistic possibility. 40, 80, 120. That's 100. I could see him getting a 3 year $140 million deal. To be honest
Yeah,
with
but
you.
I think if they do it now, they can get it more like 35 to 40 a year because they're saying, all right, like we're gonna commit to you after just a couple games. And if they wait till the end of the year, it might be closer to three by 145, 150. But it's definitely something that 35 to $50 million of wide range, but he's none of those numbers would surprise me for him.
So many of these players, they don't like to negotiate during the regular season, so that might kind of stall things out a little bit. Some of these players are like, I want to focus on my game. I don't want to talk about numbers. But that's why you have an agent. They deal with everything, and they pick up the phone and they call you and say, this is the number. Do you want to take it or not? There's a skepticism among players. They don't want to go through it. I'm not saying that's the case with Sam Darnold and the Vikings. I'm not sure if they put an offer out there for him to even consider. But I'm certain, in the back of the Vikings' head, they're definitely like, well, we got to probably figure out what we're doing here, because the truth is the expectation wasn't that Sam Darnold was going to be their future quarterback. It was going to be J.J. McCarthy. That's who they drafted. And now they have this guy in Sam Darnold who's played exceptional, and that's an understatement. And so now it puts them in a dilemma, and a good dilemma at least, having a quarterback that's really good and then a rookie that hasn't played yet, that you could kind of figure out which route you want to go down. But they could go down the same route and, put JJ, like I said, on the bench and keep him there for a little longer and hope that, he grows and gets better, and that eventually that, if there's a time where you move on from Sam Darnold, that he's there and you have another great quarterback, not having to wait for a draft to pick who your next quarterback is.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Well, the NFL it's every week we get shocked. I mean, this week was, we had some big blowouts happen, some comebacks happen towards the end, but not enough to overtake. And it's a lot. And the NFL is a beautiful thing, and we love watching our games. I sit there on Sundays and I have 4 different games on at the same time, and I'm like, which one is, the farthest along in their drive, and I go and listen to that one, and I keep switching back and forth. I have my iPad for the primetime games on, if it's, one of those games at 4 o'clock that you just can't see on the Sunday ticket. And it's just like madness, just following back and forth. It's like, what's happening in this drive? And people are like, oh, why don't you just put on Red Zone and watch that? Well, Red Zone doesn't give you the full picture of things. You can't just watch Red Zone and know what's happening in the game. It's just showing you what's happening in that scoring drive. And listen, Red Zone is great. It's informative, but I like to be able to know exactly what's happening throughout the whole entire drive from, your own 20 to the opposite end zone. And that's why I sit there and I watch these games, and it's incredible to see the progression of some of these players, the growth in some of these players that are older, that are now coming into their own. It really is a remarkable thing.
So, Harry,
I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, so I figured now's a good time now's a good time to ask you the question if you need a few minutes for the other segment.
Well, listen, I'm here. I'm ready to go for my next question. Our next segment is actually it's in the works right now. He's coming on right now. We're gonna have a guest speaker for everyone to see. But in the meantime, please ask away.
All right, Harry. So, would you rather?
That's a funny question. Oh boy.
Yeah. Would you rather fight a football player sized chicken or 10 chicken sized football players?
A football player sized chicken, or
Yeah.
10 football players that are the size of chickens?
Yeah.
10 football players the size of chickens. That chicken that's huge is gonna eat me.
But remember, these are like balls of muscle.
I'm gonna punt them. I'm gonna Pat McAfee them into the opposite end zone, and that's how we're gonna beat up on those 10 little football chickens. What are you gonna be grabbing onto my legs like, oh, let's bring them down? I'm gonna start punting them left and right. They're gonna be flying all over the 10, 15, 20 yard lines. People are gonna be, what's happening? They're gonna sign me into a kicker's role.
I feel like while you're trying to punt one, the other 9 will climb up your body and be beating you up though.
Yeah, well, the thing is, hold on. We're having some work done right now, so
I got a question for you, Josh. Josh.
Shoot.
So, if you were to fight those chickens, or I guess, what would you choose? Actually, let's flip it around. What would you choose if you were in that position?
I would choose to fight the football player sized chicken because he's only got one move. He's got the peck. I feel like you know what's coming. He doesn't have arms to punch you. He doesn't have his legs or twigs. He's not gonna kick you, so he's just gonna try and peck you. So you got that move to prepare for. It's like a punching bag. Dude.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But you could also but that's a big chicken, man.
A huge chicken. Don't get me wrong.
That's like a huge. Imagine an egg coming out of that thing.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, see,
we want to get it under control before that chicken is able to lay eggs, because we don't want more than one of those, because then it's an unfair fight.
Then you'd be done for. Then you'd be done.
Yeah.
Then you'd be done. Well, if you think about it, though, that chicken probably is gonna lay us a bunch of eggs.
Well, here's the thing: you're gonna have, regardless of the cases, you gotta have both of them recorded. So whether you're fighting this big chicken or these little 10 football players, you're gonna have it recorded, and it's gonna be a great sight to see. Now, is this ever gonna be able to happen? No, but we hope that in some crazy reality, we will be able to get it done, and we'll be able to fight some chickens. On that note, we're gonna have a great speaker coming up in about a couple of minutes, though. He is joining us right in the matter of seconds. Ben's actually going to let us know when he's ready to go, but he is joining as we speak right now. We're going to have, actually, I could say his name right now instead of just surprising everyone. It's Craig Minervini. He is the host of Bally for the Marlins as well as the Panthers, and he's going to be joining us. We're going to have some questions for him. We're going to have a nice little discussion with him for about 15 minutes or so, just to get things, changed up over here. I think this one's going to be a good one for everyone to really recap, and we're excited to bring him over as soon as he obviously gets on here. So as we're working on that, he is looking like he is actually in the lobby. So let's bring on Mr. Craig Minervini. We're excited. There we go. Hey, Craig.
Hear that crowd? Thank you very much.
We're gonna put in the voiceover too, just so we have the Marlins fans in the background. How's everything going, Craig? Thank you for joining us today.
Now, I got a fan in the background, but that's up here. That's about it.
Well,
yeah, it's great. Good to be on your show, guys. How you doing?
Great to have.
Well, we're excited because sports worlds are getting wrapped up a little bit over here, and baseball is getting into the playoffs, and football is getting into new places. Hockey is still in a strong off season, and we're expecting a lot of things to come up. But actually, let me first introduce you to my co-host over here, Josh. Have you guys been able to formally say hello?
We have not.
There
Hi,
we go.
Josh.
Hi, how are you?
Let me get my Thor hammer out of the way over here, so it's not blocking my money shot over here.
Big money shot.
And my Dan Marino signed football in the background as well. So. Well, thank you again, Craig, for joining us. I know we have some limited time over here, but we just kind of wanted to pick your brains. Obviously, you're in the sports world. You see things on an everyday basis, and we're obviously very excited to have you on. I'll ask the first question. As a Marlins fan, if you're a Marlins fan, what are you really most looking for in 2025 after the 2024 season like they just had?
Starts with Sandy Alcantara, Harry. That's where it starts. He comes off the injury, the Tommy John surgery. It was, look, you could have had a great hitting team no matter what. If you lose all your starters, every one of them, you're not gonna succeed in Major League Baseball. Well, I think the first thing you're starting with, and then again, we'll have to see where the management decides to go with this. But you've got Sandy Alcantara, Jesus Luzardo is going to be healthy, Edward Cabrera, on top of Max Meyer, Braxton Garrett. I'm leaving out one of our starters. And you're looking pretty good. Belloso was impressive as well, and Ryan Weathers had a very good year. You have a very good starting staff. You could argue one of the better top third starting staffs in baseball. That's a good spot to start from. And then I know a lot of people probably didn't watch the last few months of the season, but they actually, I thought, were more exciting than they were in the first 4 months. In the first 4 months, they scored 1 run or less 27 out of 98 times. In the last 68 games, only 6 times where they held to 1 or nothing or zip. They stole more bases. They got more hits. They slugged a little bit. Why? Because of guys like Jonah Bride and Griffin Conine, Jesus Sanchez had a good second half. Nick Fortes, Berger picked it up. Edwards hit 328 or 326. So they got some pieces now that are interesting. We'll see if it plays in the 25, but you got to like the way they finished and with the arms coming back.
And that's after an off season. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to. That's after a trade deadline where they got rid of guys like Brian De La Cruz, obviously Jazz Chisholm they sent off to the Yankees, and They were obvious sellers, and when Josh and I had the trade deadline recap, I said the Marlins were winners at this deadline.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
truth is they got rid of players that weren't really taking them to the next level. They bolstered up their prospects, and they do have a really good young core. Braxton Garrett, I think, is a phenomenal pitcher. I know that this season was filled with some injuries and kind of held him back a little bit, but I know that the future is bright for him, and they expect a lot of big things from him in 2025. And I think the Marlins, obviously the last time they were in the playoffs was, during that COVID year in 2020, but I think the playoffs are a lot closer than people really expect. They were
They
2020
made it last year too.
Oh, there we go. See
they
that? Thank God we have Craig on here for giving us our fact checks over
They were the
here.
wild card team last year. Unfortunately, it was not remembered well because not just for you, but they went out 0-2 to Philly.
Yeah.
I remember
Kind of
now.
on another subject. Baseball should change the playoff format and give the wild card team a chance to host one game. You
Yeah.
cannot build up an audience without a home game. Here's how I would do it. This is my take. It's a 3-game series. You don't want to go back and forth, back and forth. You can't do that. I would give the higher seed the option. Do you want 1-2 at home or 2-3? And give the other team a home game. The other thing is, I don't like the way they bracket it. It makes more sense to finish 6th, like the Arizona did last year and got an easier opponent in Milwaukee, unlike the Marlins, who went up 5th and played a tougher Philly team.
Mhm.
And the same thing happened this year. The 6th place team is the Mets. They're playing Milwaukee, a division winner, but arguably maybe a lesser opponent than San Diego, which will host the Braves, the 5th seed. Not only that, but as a 6-3 team, if you win it, you play the 2nd seed, whereas the 4-5 team plays the 1st seed. It doesn't make sense.
That's why we see a lot of
All right,
shifts in
I'm
these
off
in
my
these in these brackets, right? I mean, the last couple of years, MLB's been doing a lot of changes with the playoff scheduling and how it's going to be handled. Josh, you have any input on this?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with that. I want to go back to the thing about the Marlins before. Big fantasy acquisition of Xavier Edwards for my team. 30
pick
bags
up.
taken also. Thank you. Yeah, I got him on both of my teams. He's at 30 bags, great player. I expect lots of triples in the future, and I think that it's really cool to see. It's almost like when Jazz left, someone with the same sort of energy for the fans came in. So I think that's something really good for them. Maybe not necessarily the personality, but I feel like it's only been a short
Right.
time, so maybe the
Yeah, doesn't
personality
have the
break out.
personality as Jazz. You're right, but I'll take that personality in the field. He reminds me a little more of a combination, if you will, of Luis Ariz and Jazz Chisholm,
Yeah,
but he doesn't have the power. When he doesn't have the slug of Jazz, so more Ariz like really. But his effect on the game is loud. And you said 30 steals, which is right. But that's half a season. Can he
yeah,
get 50? Can he get 60? They didn't throw him out much either. And he also does something that Ariz doesn't do. Do you know what that is? I'm going to pose a question back to you. What does he do that Ariz doesn't do?
Play
is it the switch
defense.
hitting?
He walks. Yes,
Oh,
he also is a switch hitter. He walks. He can. The on base percentage is impressive.
Luis
Ariz
Arias
did a
does
good
not
job at
walk,
second. Yeah, he never walks. I think he struck out more than he walked, and he doesn't strike out much.
and his
I'm pretty
OPS is
sure,
like under 800 for a guy who's batting around 330.
and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Xavier Edwards was the prospect that I'm not going to quote Blake Snell on what he said about, but he was the prospect that Blake Snell got traded for that he wasn't very happy and didn't have nice things to say about. That I'm not going to say the phrase that he
Oh
used.
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but
Sometimes it gets a little
Xavier Edwards
sour.
has proven this year that he's a full-time major leaguer. He's a full-time major leaguer. The question is he going to play shortstop or second base? Right now, the Marlins don't have a shortstop, so he's at shortstop. He held his own, did a good job over there. Not sure he's not better suited for second base. We'll see what happens in the offseason.
Absolutely, and I
Seems like
kind of
it's
want
his
to,
job to lose, right?
yeah.
Yes.
And I think that we could pivot a little bit to. I wanted to hear from someone who watched every game what Brandon Montour's impact was on the Panthers and how tough you think it'll be to replace what he brings to the team on a day-to-day basis as well as down the stretch.
Here's one thing he means.
Yep, he did that.
Take a look at this. This is pretty cool. So I got this. This is from Fanatics. This sounds like a commercial, but can you guys see the liquid in there? Can
I,
you tell
s-
that there's a you see it? Can you
I
tell that
definitely see
there's
something in there. Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
see it. I see it now that I
so
wouldn't have
that is
noticed if you didn't
that's
point it out.
frozen official game used ice.
That's cool.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
How do you even
That
get
is
that in a
cool.
That's
puck like that? That's incredible.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they don't use this puck, Harry. This is a
They think of everything.
they have Fanatics came out with a bunch of stuff like that. There's another one they have too with the game used factor.
I like the Giants helmet over there. That's probably my favorite feature, if you have to ask
Oh,
me.
the Giants, yeah, that's good. And where is that other thing? There's another thing here somewhere from Fanatics, which is cool. Oh, this same idea. It's a Stanley Cup, and it's got the liquid in it as well. I don't know if you could see it,
Wow.
but it's got game used ice in
I
there.
was gonna say, was it ice at first and then it melted down into the water?
Not when I got it. By the time I got it, it was yeah. But anyway, very cool. And I don't know where I put that.
Harry, I'm sure
You
you get
probably
the
got a lot of
picture
really
up.
cool stuff there. I see bobbleheads. I mean, I see a lot of cool. I mean, over your course of
I could give you a tour if I move this thing around.
it's
but
probably a museum back there, right?
I got a lot of my wrestling stuff too, because I used to be a World Wrestling Federation announcer, WWE. So I got a picture here with.
What's the
You wanna see
transition
one?
like from that to sports, like to
A little
big
different.
four
Well, I mean,
sports?
this might be a little awkward. Was this live? Like, this is on right now?
No, we're just recording.
Okay, can you see the wall or not? I don't know if you can see my wall.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah,
Wow, you
yeah.
got some pretty cool pictures up there.
This one here is on the left. I shouldn't do that. George the Animal Steel up there. He was a crazy wrestler. Andre the Giant.
That's cool.
Craig, are you familiar with Mandy Rhodes?
Mandy Rhodes. Is she Dusty Rhodes' something?
She's
no?
she's in the WWE. She's a wrestler. She
Yeah, I
actually
don't
records out
follow
of our
this-
studio as well over here too.
Oh,
She's
okay. I don't follow the WWF like WWE anymore like that, but I was in the middle of it back in the day, and interviewed all these guys:
That's
Hogan,
super cool.
Randy Savage, the Macho Man,
the old school
Andre the
guys.
Giant.
My
was
favorite guy
there-
was Dave Bautista growing up. He was a legend in my head. Loved that
Yeah,
man. He was
yeah.
great. Watching him, he was entertaining.
Yeah, so because you guys are so much younger, I worked there. I was there for WrestleMania 3 and 4.
Wow.
In the heyday.
That sounds like, for me, it's like Super Bowl 3 or 4, right? When we see the Jets win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I understand that, but it was really the height of the business. Probably was right then.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to hobnob with Jake the Snake Roberts and these guys. It was fun.
Now they got the
George. I had a different name, by the way.
Now it's like the AWF is around and new wrestling federations coming left and right. But actually, I wanted to quickly get back into Brandon Montour because obviously he made a huge impact for the Panthers in the playoffs and obviously winning it all this year. And, they lose him. They had to re-sign Reinhardt. That was obviously their number one thing that they had to do in order to keep things going.
Yeah.
And, now he's in Seattle and you lose that punch a little bit. How do they expect to replace that for this season?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. The unfortunate thing is, and it's a good thing too, actually, the good thing is the bad thing right now, and that is the NHL has a salary cap and it's hard. So it's 86 million or whatever it is. And so when you win and every team goes through it, guys get pay raises and you just can't pay everybody.
For
It's
sure.
really a good news story in that everybody's got the same chance. You can't say that in the other sports, baseball in particular. You can say it in basketball and you can say it in the NFL. Baseball is an unfair sport because there's no salary cap. Unfair in that by money, the teams can outspend other teams by 3 times. It's harder to compete against that model. But hockey is not the case. Everybody's got the same ceiling. Whether they spend to it or not is up to them. And they just didn't have the money for Montour because he's played so well. He didn't have a great year. He was very good in the playoffs. He didn't have a great year, but he was coming off an injury too. Just like Tkachuk was a little quiet in the first half, and then he came on in the second half, and obviously in the playoffs and Stanley Cup, he was great. So they had to make some changes now, and they're going to miss Montour. What did he wind up last year? When you look at his overall numbers last year, it wasn't like it was this season, but I mean the year before that. But still, a great player. They're going to miss him. I'm sure he would want to stay. Anybody can say whatever they want. I'm happy for him. He signed a life-altering contract.
For sure.
And we'll have to see how the pieces fall. Remember last year it took a little while for this Panther team to kind of get in their groove. And I think the same thing probably this year, although I thought they did a pretty good job last year I thought it might take half the season to get their act down.
Mhm.
They did it much quicker than I thought they would last year.
Once they got it down. Yeah,
Once they got it down, and then by the second half they were rolling.
they were, I mean,
It's
unstoppable.
yeah, unstoppable. Yeah.
Did you know
So
the fun fact that Evan Rodriguez is the first Evan to win the Stanley Cup?
I did not know that was even a fun fact, actually, let alone a fact.
Well,
That's
Brandon Montour actually wanted to go back quickly on that. He obviously, 2 years ago, he went from 73 points down to 33 points. So obviously, the regular season was huge. Playoffs rolled around. He
Right.
stepped it up a little bit, but it just,
Yeah, he did.
the salary cap, like you said, it's really unfair in terms of bringing back your players that you want to bring back. But I actually quickly wanted to get into the MLB because you said it's unfair, and this is the argument that a lot of people make, that it is unfair. But last season, when you see teams like the Mets, the Yankees, spending so much money, and then they don't make the playoffs, and then you have teams that are, spending 80, $90 million that are making the playoffs, isn't it more about how you're able to bring in the youth, the young talent in? And that's really the most important thing, other than just spending money, because you could spend money and make the wrong decisions. And we've seen
No
that happen so
question.
many times.
Just because you spend money doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean it, but it gives you a head start. You can deal with if you miss on one or two, you can live with it. You got somebody else coming up. You're always spending more. So it gives you a room of error of the error where you've got this and another team has this. It's just how it is because everybody's got their local TV deals. There is a lot of money to go around to help other markets. There's a luxury tax and so on. They've made it better. There's nothing really you could do about it. I don't think they'll ever come to a cap. They'll probably try. Major League Baseball will try. But the fact is year after year, the same teams are in the mix. And that's because of the payroll. Now, you're right. One year they might not win. When the manager gets fired, you get a couple of injuries, they have down years. It's not a guarantee. Doesn't mean a team like the Marlins, they made the playoffs 2 out of the last 4 years. Doesn't mean a team like the Marlins, even back in the day where their payroll wasn't as high, although they had a good one in 97, that they can't make a run with younger players. And you've seen it with the Astros. You've seen it with some other teams. Texas Rangers came on and make a run at it and then are competitive. But by and large, if you're spending 200 plus million, you're probably going to be in the mix. All you could ask for is to be in the mix. It's not necessarily to win the World Series, to be competitive and in the mix. And it's harder for teams like Tampa Bay, that's done a great job, and the Marlins and other teams too. The Pirates, there are other teams that don't spend as much. It's just harder to compete. But that's the world. You got to deal with it. So you can't use it as an excuse. The Marlins are trying to turn the table a little bit. They brought in Peter Bendix from the Rays to do just that, to handle a lower budget because they don't have the revenue as like other teams and still put on a competitive product. And one of the things you talked about was all those trades that hopefully will pay off down the line and let them do that.
I think the Marlins have a bright future, a lot sooner than a lot of people project them to really get back into the mix of things. The Braves are kind of trending down. Obviously, they've dealt with their fair share of injuries, and they're a great organization. But the Marlins seem like they know what they're doing, making the right moves, and hopefully the future is bright for them. Josh and I were actually, we're big Yankee fans, so we appreciate the trades that sometimes come our way. Obviously, in 2018, we got Big G, which was amazing. I actually share a birthday with him, and he is one of the greatest players that I've been able to watch personally, see in my life. And
he
he's a
was
special
better
man.
here though.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was. He won the MVP, obviously,
incredible.
2017. He was absolutely
57
insane.
homers.
And now it's kind of like, he's one of those situations, right, where you look and you're like, well, that trade Yankees took on $32 million. Now, today, next season's $32 million. Again, it's a lot of money where, Soto's a free agent. You have a lot of things happening. So it's a lot of things that are going to be cooking. This playoffs are going to be really exciting. We're going to get a little bit more into that in the future as well. But, I mean, baseball is back.
The game yesterday was unbelievable.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I was watching that back and forth. It was 3-0 for the Braves, and then the Mets came. They made it 6-3. Then in the bottom of the eighth, it was 7-6, and then Lindor, and obviously in the top of the ninth, hit that 2-run home run. I was shocked a little bit.
Spectacular game.
Still not the MVP
exciting
though.
for the Mets. Again, I feel bad for the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a shame that they play 162 games and you lose on a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
That you can't get a playoff game. They need another day off in here before they're jamming these games together.
It's horrible.
They need another day off. The Arizona should have had a shot. They should have had one team in, and they get a chance to play a play-in game.
Yeah.
But again, that's the rules. Everybody knew it. It's unfortunate that a game that you play I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but I know both the Braves and Mets had the advantage on Arizona as far as the tiebreak goes.
They did, and it kind of this is where a lot of people were upset. I know a lot of Mets fans who were absolutely absurd and irate over the fact that this was even happening to them. That on the day off, that they have to play not only one game, but they have to play two games in order to figure out. But it felt like it was a playoff environment. I actually told the Mets fans, I'm like, you guys should be happy that you feel like you're actually playing some playoff baseball right now, and that's what it felt like yesterday, at least for that doubleheader. And you feel bad for the reigning NL pennant winners, and they lose out on this scenario, but. It goes back to how baseball's not perfect. There needs to be a lot of changes done. I'm not going to make comments on, who's making those decisions, but the truth is sometimes they're very questionable.
Well, Arizona's got an argument, but that's the rules. It's just how it is. Sometimes you come on the short end of the stick. I think baseball should have played the game last Monday. The Mets wanted to play it Monday. I don't think the Braves did. They should have played at least one. And I'll tell you what, if it was me and I was in charge, I would have moved the series to Miami and played both of those games Wednesday and Thursday at Lone Depot Park. The Marlins were on the road or somewhere else. Pick a park where the weather wasn't a factor. But that's one idea I would have had is move it to South Florida, play the two games. I'm sorry, Braves fans. We'll give you the cut of the money, whatever we got here, and get the integrity of the game so that you had the two games played when they should have. It also messes up with the rotation now for both teams. Interesting. I didn't see if the Braves announced their starter today, but I was wondering if that back spasm issue was a real thing for Chris Sale. I imagine it was, but I don't know for a fact. And I'm interested to see if he pitches the first game or two or three, how bad that back was.
Still hasn't been determined. We know Michael King's going for the Padres, but still hasn't been determined who the Braves are
It
going to be sending
actually
out there.
just got dropped that it's going to be AJ Smith-Shawver.
Oh, wow.
Like literally just went in, and the blank face went to a face, and AJ
All right,
Smith-Shawver.
so then then obviously the back thing is a real thing for Sale. They probably would have had to pitch him in game two had
Yeah.
that been had he not had that. Hopefully though, and I'm not a Braves fan, but hopefully I want to see him pitch. I hope that's not a big time injury and that he can pitch maybe game two or game three.
He's had an
I thought it
incredible
would have been
story too.
cool. I thought it would have been cool to put the. It would have made no sense and would have never happened. But I thought it would have been cool to have a couple more games that matter in the Oakland Coliseum before they tear that down. But that would have never happened.
That would have been nice too. Yes, you could put a lot of people in that place, by the way.
A lot of people were saying they should play those games in that neutral ground. Obviously, that's not what happened. The Braves might have sounded a little selfish in wanting those home games, but this is what happened. The
I
Mets,
could have played it Monday, Harry. They played the game Monday. They both had Monday off.
right?
Play one game at least Monday. And then if you had to play one more, then you play one game yesterday.
That would have been the right way to go about it. And hopefully the MLB learns from this and, sees what happened here and learns from these mistakes. We can only hope for the best. We actually want to get to a lighter note real quick, actually. About 6 years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but you pranked a rookie with Miguel Rojas when it came
Yes.
to Josh, I know that we were discussing this, and poor guy looked
Remember that?
terrified. Poor guy looked terrified in
Course.
that video where you guys are showing him a bill for $250 to replace your suit, and he's like, "What is happening?" And Miguel Rojas is like, "I'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna let the." It was absolutely amazing. I was hysterically laughing when I saw that. Josh, what did you think?
So you got to have some fun in this job, right? And I remember driving home in that day. It was Lewis Brinson, by the way, who I still bring up to this day. I bring it up with him. What happened? I'm trying to see if I actually have. So I thought about it on the way home, and I went to my computer and I got a hanger kind of logo. I found some cleaners logo, put a fake name up with a inscription, find the rest, we're the best or whatever, and it looked real. And signed some other thing from that we cannot clean your jacket. And so we had it was April Fool's Day too, by the way.
Right.
And we
That
had
was
Miguel
great.
present the bill with a microphone on to
Yeah,
the
that's the type of stuff that I find a lot of appreciation and gratitude for people in your role, because for the people that don't have season tickets and can't go out every day,
Yeah.
for people like you, that's like Michael K for me when I watch the Yankees. Like
Right.
it brings it to life for me, and to be able to do that at such a high level is such a great thing.
It was absolutely
Thank you.
hilarious.
Thank you for remembering that. You sometimes you do all these stories and you're not sure people, notice because we're not like a comedian where you get the immediate feedback from the crowd.
Mhm.
We're on TV, and the only feedback you get is when you see people in person and they wave or they say thanks, and it means a lot to me when people do that, because it gives you that connection that you hope you're reaching just by doing this. I just finished my 23rd year doing the Marlins games.
Great.
So it's nice that you remember that. We did a story on Chris who who's our do you remember this one? He was the bullpen catcher.
You're gonna have to remind us
And
on this one, unless Josh, you know more
well,
about this one.
Now I
he
want to
was
hear
you
it
can look
though.
it up. You look it on YouTube or somewhere, but he was the Marlins bullpen catcher. Late in the season we got him. And I kept thinking of it. I gotta do this story. I gotta do this story. And right at the end of the year, I had the camera guy shoot kind of through screens and this guy coming around. Who is this guy? And I did a whole what's the name of the guy who's the bullpen catcher? Interviewed all the pitchers. Who's the guy? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask. Who's the new catcher? Blah, 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 blah. And,
That's funny.
it was funny. I went to Dean Trainer. I said, Dean, you're the guy I'll know. You are the pitching coach who catches the ball out there. He better catch every one of them. Who. And anyway, we had some fun. The important thing is, like what you guys do, it's not just about the nuts and bolts. Have some fun.
That's what we love
Yeah.
to do. I mean, for us, sports has been something we've gone back and forth with for as long as we can remember our friendship being. And you got to sometimes look at the positives and the lights. And you just referenced Abbott and Costello, similar to that. Where who's on first, what's on second? I don't know who's on third.
Right.
It kind of gave me back to those vibes, and that's actually hysterical. And I'm gonna actually look into that after we get off and watch
Chris
that
who?
video. But
Yeah.
you gotta bring in the comedy. You gotta have fun. You gotta let loose. You gotta bring the knowledge, obviously, and bring the hardcore facts. But at the same time, have fun with it, because sports is about having fun. It's about enjoying what you're watching and enjoying it with people around you, and really analyzing it for what it is.
Absolutely. I think the number one thing is that the game is the most important thing. We know that. The facts, the storylines, that's number one. But if you can mix in a little humor along the way, you may not know this. My brother's a stand-up comedian. He owned a comedy club. And when I was growing up, I used to work in the club along with my buddies, and we would be around all these comedians, from Jerry Seinfeld to Eddie Murphy to Kevin James, Rosie O'Donnell, all worked there. Adam Sandler and Joe Rogan recently on their podcast mentioned my brother right in the beginning of the podcast and this place called the East Side Comedy Club. So it definitely had an effect on all of us hearing all these jokes and being from a sort of a comedy family. And not that I'm a comedian, but we want to have some fun, lighten it up. Sometimes with my host, it's a long season, especially in baseball. I think you have more of an opportunity in baseball to have the lighter side than hockey, which is kind of a little tighter schedule,
For
and
sure.
a little more serious than. But
Yeah.
not that you can't have fun in hockey too, but it's just a little different.
And I feel like there's a lot going on at once, and then it just stops. Versus baseball, there's the stops, natural pauses that allow for it too.
Yeah, right in the game. Yeah, but although the end of the baseball season, like we are right now, it's a thump. You're going crazy for 6 months and it just stops. It's weird. It takes a little while to transition back to everyday life.
For sure.
Well, we got only a couple of weeks until hockey does begin, but Craig, we got to say thank you to you. Thank you so much for coming in, giving us all your knowledge, and we really appreciate you stopping in. And we got to bring you some
Pleasure.
pizza from Comac also, because that's where I'm from as
Sure.
well. We got to bring you a nice fresh
Wow.
pie. I don't know how we're
I'm
gonna get it
in one
done,
of
but
those right now.
If Lascalas is still there,
La Scala's is still there. It is definitely
It is
still there.
still
And they
there?
bring you the nice bread basket with the garlic bread. It's fantastic. We're going to get you a pie from La Scala. We're going to figure out how to bring it down here, keep it as fresh as possible so you could enjoy it while maybe watching a
yeah.
Marlins game
If I had one of those police artists or those law sketch artists you get in the courtroom, I could describe the two guys that delivered or sold the pizza there, the short guy and the tall guy, to a T from the 70s at La Scala. Because me and my buddies, we went there all the time for a couple of. The nice thing there is you can get a couple of fresh slices. You don't have to buy the whole pie. You get 2 slices
right.
and a soda for $4. Hey.
Can't beat it. $4. I don't know about $4 anymore. Inflation's kind of been tough, but
Maybe it was $2.25, $3 back in the day. Or if you really wanted to go crazy, get the Sicilian, that thick piece. But they don't have 9 million options like you have today. I had one the other day. They called it Grandma's Pizza I thought my grandmother made it, and she hasn't been alive for 20 years.
Oh
And it
wow.
was brutal.
If
It
it's
was brutal.
Florida, you're gonna have to share it with me because I'm in Florida
Oh, it was
too.
terrible.
Oh, it was
No, this one
terrible?
you
Never mind.
terrible.
No.
I said I thought my grandmother's made it, and she's been gone for 20 years. I mean, made it like now.
Oh, I thought you were getting like the reminiscence of your grandma
No.
making it.
That's great.
All right, so we'll scratch that, and we're gonna have to go back to the original spot. La Scala, they're still going strong over there too in Comac
Scala
too.
is great. Any Long Island, you can't go wrong with a Long
Yeah.
Island New York pizza.
Exactly,
Sure.
for sure. Even though now it's like $5 a slice, but what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
It's still
No,
worth
to get
it.
some pizza for dinner tonight for you guys.
Well, again, Craig, thank you so much for popping in on our podcast. Hopefully, we can have you down the line as well, maybe in person. Maybe we'll come to a Marlins game and bring up the mic and say, hey, Craig, got any answers on this? But we'll go from there on that.
Gotcha.
And again, thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
That was Craig Minervini, and he brought us some really good, obviously, information on baseball, hockey. He's the guy in Florida and Bally and with the Marlins and the Panthers, and his knowledge goes far back, obviously. And it was so great to have him share with us and
Oh, cool.
all the viewers, everybody that, what he does and, what he sees, and obviously the fun parts about his job as well.
Yeah, it's nice to have the people with some experience come along because while we're doing this, we're still pretty new at this, and he's been i- in the he's been going at it for 23 years, like you said. So it's really cool to see some things from his perspective, and a lot of perspectives are of ours and his aren't very different, but he's just got more experience and more reason to be behind it.
We got one more thing we want to quickly do. We're going to give you guys our playoff brackets since this is the last opportunity we have. We're going to run right through it, and then we're going to call it. Josh, give us your playoff predictions real quick, right off the line, and then I'll go right after you.
Absolutely, and we'll just say this is gonna be something we'll put on social. We want to hear your opinion on it, and hopefully we get some cool opinions that we could talk on, and where you call us out for being right, being wrong. But so wild card in DS, I got Royals playing the Yankees and the Yankees winning. I got the Astros beating the Guardians. Well, the Astros beating Tigers, then the Guardians. I have the Brewers beating the Mets and then also beating the Phillies. I have the Padres beating the Dodgers, the Braves and the Dodgers. Sorry, I wrote it really weird. And then the ALCS, I think the Yankees finally get their redemption on Houston. 6-1 against Houston this year. It seems like the boys are really motivated against this team, and I do not think they could take 4 games against us. You might look at my shirt and think I'm biased, and you might think I'm wrong, and that's why they play the game. But go Yanks! I got the Padres over the Dodgers. They were 8-5 against the Dodgers this year. I think that super bullpen is going to be something that's going to be a lot of trouble for whoever the Padres run into, and the offense is just so in sync. And Jackson Merrill is going to get some playoff experience. But we're like Harry said, we're not really going into it, even though I kind of did. Yankees over Padres in 6, though.
Wow, Juan Soto's a former team in the World Series against him. That's really interesting. I'm going to run off mine real quick. For the wild card, I actually have Baltimore beating KC. KC's kind of struggled over the last couple of weeks, so I believe Baltimore will be able to get it done. I have the Yankees beating Baltimore. I have Houston over Detroit, and Detroit is actually going to be playing Houston. Actually, that's the 3 and the 6 seeds going at it. So Houston will be beating Detroit. Yankees over Houston. We have home field this time, not you, Houston. So the ball is in our court, and I think the Yankees are going to take it this season in the ALCS.
We want it.
San Diego will win over Atlanta. The Dodgers will beat San Diego. Unfortunately, I think they're just too high-powered of a team. And once the playoffs begin,
Great
I think
series.
that it is going to be an absolutely great
You agree
series.
6-7 games?
I think it's going to go that far for sure. 6 games at the minimum, guaranteed. I mean, the Padres are a star-studded team, and just losing Juan Soto really, in my eyes, didn't change a lot about how good that roster is, up and down, pitching, hitting, all that good stuff. I got Milwaukee over the Mets. Obviously, the Mets are going to have a wild card game, and they are currently going to be playing against, remind me, Atlanta?
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, no, San Diego over Atlanta. I have my brackets a little off here. I'm sorry. Dodgers over San Diego. I got Milwaukee over the Mets. The Mets are not going to make it far this season. I got the Phillies over the Brewers. And then I have the Dodgers over the Phillies. That's just a really quick little recap over that. And then I have Dodgers versus Yankees, the World Series that everybody is hoping for. High-powered teams, LA versus New York. And
Joey versus Judge.
come on, bro. Who's going to win the World Series? It's going to be the New York Yankees, 28. I'm biased. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not biased either, because the Yankees are an incredible team. And at the same time, I think they have the best pitching rotation in baseball right now. So I think this should
Especially for a
help them
playoff
get
series.
through it. And, for playoffs, you stick 2 of them into the bullpen. You have 3 starters in the division series, 4 in the ALCS, and obviously 4 in the World Series. And it's going to be really exciting to see how these playoffs begin. I'm excited to get back home and start watching playoff baseball.
In love with the Soto.
We love him very much. We're so excited to see him. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into such a special episode. We had Craig on here. He gave us such great things. And, we're really happy to bring you guys new stuff every single week. Don't forget to let us know how crazy we are. And, please, Spotify, Apple TV, or Apple Music, or whatever you listen on. I know you can't really listen on Apple TV, or Apple Music, but you can listen on Apple Podcasts if you do prefer to. And obviously YouTube, and, we're on social media as well. So please check us out. Let us know if there's anything that you'd like to see on here. Josh, you have anything to say before we let them go?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to everyone watching, and also to Ben for being flexible with us when we're working, having a question, maybe not ready for me, but something cool to talk about while we get everything organized. It's just really great to work with you and have this be something that we can continue to be proud of and continue to get better at.
This doesn't happen without Ben. 100%. I would be standing and talking at a wall if it wasn't for Ben. You and I would just literally be staring at a wall and just be like, sports, 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 sports. And then thank God we met Ben, and Ben could bring this whole thing to life. So thank you, Ben, and thank you to the Podcast Junkies for always making this a seamless and easy process. And we love it. And we love having you on as well, Ben, whenever you come on and give us some great questions and just give us that positive energy that you always bring to the studio every single day.
Thanks, guys. I love doing the show, so I appreciate it.
And let's not forget, how could we forget? The best part is the Yogiisms. We made too many wrong mistakes. What a special man he was, saying things that contradict himself. Thank you guys so much for tuning into a really special episode of Beyond the Score podcast. We'll be back next week, and we hope to see you there.
Itu dan itu